Hi everyone. This is a little chat between a couple of blokes and about things that are going on and how we're feeling about stuff. And the purpose of this is because it is really becoming more and more and more evident that for one reason or another, men are not necessarily the most openly discursive of their feelings. And there is a lot of stuff that maybe can't be said or should or isn't felt like it can be expressed. And so this is a chance for a couple of blokes to have a chat. Sans pub. Because you don't have to have a pub and a chat, you can just have a chat. And so each of us individually have been in WhatsApp conversation, and it was only when I think the third one of you and I had a conversation recently on WhatsApp that I realized that I've kind of been having a very similar conversation with all three of you independently about various different things because there's different challenges we're all going through. Anyway, I would like to just hand over to each of you to give a 20-second intro of who you are and where you are and why you wanted to be part of this call, and then we'll get going. So I'll do it in order of my screen anyway, so no hierarchy. Matt, over to you first, and I'll put myself on mute.
All right, hi guys. So yeah, Matt, living in Bristol, UK. I was interested in this just to get a perspective from other guys, really. I have purposely not really thought about what this may or may not be, and I haven't prepared at all. As part of, I think, my process is I want to be taken by surprise. I want to actually not have the answers, because I think that's one of the main problems. Well, one of the problems with guys is they expect themselves to have the answers and to be all over a problem. And yeah, it's very rarely the case.
Good. I like the sound of that. Sion, over to you next, mate. What's brought you here? Where are you physically? And and what's going on in your head? Why did you want to join this?
Okay, so yeah, so my name's Sion. I'm actually now physically in Croatia, but I live full time in Austria. I run an online business with my partner, my wife, which is to do with pack rafting and expeditions. I'm actually now scouting expedition locations in Croatia. Yeah, this group was really, I guess, we've all gone through some changes in the last few months, and it wasn't until I started to talk to other people and other men that I knew and started to share some of my experiences that I realized that a lot more people than I realized were actually going through this. And once I kind of started to have that conversation, they opened up to me. And just in turn, by realizing that other people were going through this, other guys were going through this, it made it easier for me to deal with. I felt that I wasn't alone and facing all of this by myself, which kind of felt unsurmountable, but there were others that were going through something similar. So I felt a little bit of, I guess, united, or a little bit like, you know what, everybody's going through this. This is normal at this point in time. There's some big changes happening. So that's why I really wanted to be a part of this, to share it, because I think that if other people that maybe aren't as expressive and aren't having these conversations can realize that other people are experiencing, maybe they'll feel a bit less anxiety, or they'll be able to help get themselves back out again.
Well said. And David, over to you finally to say where you are, how's it going, why do you want to join?
So I'm in sunny Leigh-on-Sea in Essex. I'm really excited actually to be on here. I normally listen to your shows, Jonathan, and I've not been on one, so I'm on the other end of it now, which is cool. I've been showing up to my vulnerable side for a couple of years now, practicing showing feelings, which is like what this is about, and been my own witness to how much of an impact that can have. It's changed my life dramatically in a good way. So yeah, I think everybody should practice it in a safe way as much as possible.
And so, Dave, while you're on, when we first met, we almost immediately, as far as I'm concerned, probably prompted by your partner already knowing me beforehand, but you and I very rapidly got into that level of feelings-based conversation. We had absolutely no lads conversation whatsoever. It went immediately to, it jumped all of the alpha male jumps, missed all of that. It went all of that, all the way to how we were actually really feeling about stuff, which I don't think that's not normal for men to just get to that situation straight away. When we left that restaurant, my partner and I left that restaurant from that evening. We were walking down the street as a four of us. Then we went off, I guess, one direction. You went off another direction. And she said to me, "Why aren't more men like that? Why do you think we?" And then we're going to get onto our specific situations in life. But just as a quick round robin, why aren't men more expressive with their feelings?
It's just conditioning, Jonathan. As far as what I'm learning, it's just what we're conditioned as children. You know, an easy way of putting it. I'm studying myself, and one of the teachers said, if you just imagine you've got two children at the playground, you've got your son, you've got your daughter. Your daughter's on the swing, she falls off, she grazes her knee, she goes over to mum and dad, she's crying. They're going to cuddle her, soothe her, tell her everything's okay, give her that emotional space, if you like, to understand what emotions she's going through at that particular time. The boy jumps on the swing, falls off, grazes his knee. We all know what reaction he's going to get. You know, boys don't cry. Shut up, stop embarrassing yourself, pull your socks up, blah, blah, blah. So I think we're just conditioned from a very, very young age, right away through, to not show feelings. To people think that men showing feelings is a weakness. Yeah. What I've discovered over the last 2 years is it's the biggest strength you can have. It really is. And to be able to do it after so much conditioning at our time in life is extremely difficult, but extremely and more so important. You know,
yeah, I agree. Sion, when we first met, we met in a farm in Spain. And you were staying in a hexayurt on a hill. So, and we had quite a connection, quite a rapid connection about real life things. But since then, we've had a session together speaking about stuff, and then other conversations. What's your take on, you know, when we speak about stuff, Sion, do you feel that you are doing anything unusual to be open about your feelings as a man, or is this something that you've always been expressively open with your feelings? Is that something that's normal for you?
That's a very good question, Jonathan. I definitely agree with David. You know, like part of, in my younger years, the way I was upbringing, I kind of had a very unexpressive father as a role model. So I never really got to see him getting in touch with his feelings, and, you know, unless he lost his temper, kind of thing. And then on the other side, a very spiritual, open mother that was kind of, you know, showing that these things are okay and exposing me to that different feminine side. Growing up, I've definitely battled with those two. But I've found, as David correctly said before, like it's generally our vulnerability that's our greatest strength. So I'm a little bit more now in my open years, I've had enough experiences to know from past times that I've reconnected with people, and I've made myself vulnerable, and I said, look, this is what I'm really feeling. I have enough experience now to know that generally that's accepted as a strength, and it's generally people, you know, other men feel that if you do take that step, they're prepared to open up a bit, and it brings that bond of people closer together.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I'm doing anything special, except perhaps acknowledging those feelings, which can be sometimes, you know, that first step of acknowledging that is the biggest step, because once you acknowledge that you have an issue, or you're facing a challenge, or you're going through something, it empowers you to then look for solutions on how to better deal with it.
Well said. And Matt, over to you. I've known you the longest here, but also had the privilege of knowing your family from a more general perspective. And I've rarely met a family who are more open with their feelings to one another anyway. So and also you as a person, you know, Matt and I were in the same band together back in the olden days, 30 something years ago, and most of the lyrics that Matt, I think all of the lyrics that Matt ever wrote, with very few exceptions, were about how he felt about something, and sometimes lean towards anger or extreme love. So Matt, what, is this something when you speak, when you feel about you're feeling things, you're expressing your emotions? This to me doesn't seem like something that's new for you, at least.
No, I think that's fair to say. Very, very similar sort of story in terms of that split between mother and father and their approach to emotions. I mean, my dad isn't closed off. He is quite reserved, and he is quite gentle in his openness. So a lot of the time when my mum was still alive, who was again much more sort of spiritually connected, just a huge love machine basically for everyone she came in contact with, she would always take the lead, and my dad would be happy with that as well. So it wasn't like he was distant or removed. He just, you kind of, even as a kid, picked up on that dynamic of like, oh, okay, this is one of those situations, so mum's got this, and dad's floating around in the background, maybe quietly nodding, but kind of letting her run the show. So yeah, you're right, there's never really been an issue for me expressing myself. I think the thing that I still need practice with, when it comes to sharing emotions with men, especially when you're first getting to meet a fella, or you've moved into a new area or whatever, I think for me that's where the biggest test is, because then my childhood of having that expressiveness and being able to share, generally more associated with females, I tend to have more female friends. I would really like more male friends, and that conditioning starts to sneak in of like, oh man, how do I get to know this new bloke? Yeah. Where's my starting point? So to hear like the story when you guys were just talking on an emotional level like that, that's wonderful, but it's also how do you negotiate that? How do you, I guess it's putting yourself into that situation where you're laying yourself bare again, and knowing that some of the time you might be doing that and taking that chance with a guy who might respond more traditionally, might start reinstilling feelings about yourself that maybe you're not quite manly enough to be that man's friend. So I think that's the only, for me, that's still the thing that and having these kind of conversations. And normally the thing is, it's just about doing it, rehearsing it, practicing it, giving yourself a chance to lay yourself bare, because actually some of the people in my life that I would not have associated with softness or support or really an understanding on an emotional level, because of maybe their persona or the way that we've interacted with just full on banter. And when I've exposed a fragility, some of the most unexpected guys out there that are, at face value, right old bruisers who are just going to go, oh, come on, you dickhead, let's dust yourself off, let's do this, have actually been incredibly sensitive and incredibly supportive, but with a different kind of male energy behind it as well, which was both really surprising, but also really encouraging. Like, it exists, and it doesn't have to replicate females, but it can have some of the same qualities, and it is there.
Yeah, I felt that. I felt the same. I but the surprising reactions of some. But I do also feel that there's a lot of traditional. So in my situation I'm in at the moment, I'm going into, I'm in a very awkward situation in terms of finance and living, and the whole of everything in my business life has collapsed, and I've spent all of my money in the last 2 years fighting a legal battle with someone who was set purely to cause harm and malice. And so, it's speaking to other men about the process has been quite interesting, because there's kind of a various end of spectrum. There's one end of the spectrum, actually there's this new end of a spectrum that I didn't even realize, which is, I think that to some guys it's embarrassing to talk about another guy's failures or weaknesses. And I've actually seen them try and change the subject, because actually they would prefer not to talk about frailty and fragility. It's just not, it doesn't make them feel very comfortable. Sion, I'm not going to reveal too much about our conversations because it's totally private, but is there anything that you'd like to share about how what you've been going through in the last couple of months in terms of your progress in your life?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it's like, well, you know, like everybody that I've spoken to, the whole situation with COVID and the lockdowns happened a lot faster than I expected, and on a lot larger scale than I expected, and pretty much our business, or my business that I'd set up, stopped overnight. And it was pretty much 3 weeks where it was just dead in the water, and there was this huge amount of uncertainty. You know, where is, you know, my income? I've spent years building this business, and it's, you know, maybe it's perhaps gone. Where am I going to find income from? What's going to happen with the recession? How long is the lockdown going to last? You know, all of these questions that we've all had, and no one's really been able to provide an answer for. And it kind of, you know, I kind of fell into this, probably, you know, where we were, the lockdown wasn't so bad, so, you know, we could still go outside and leave, but I kind of fell into this routine of staying at home, sleeping more. Then, you know, slowly lack of motivation creeped in, a little bit of apathy, I guess you could say. And then finally, you know, probably a month or 6 weeks into this, after feeling pretty much I guess a general kind of malaise, I think I was talking with one of my good friends, you know, and I realized in the conversation, I said to him, look, actually, I don't really want to say this because there's a bit of a stigma to it. But to be honest, I think I'm actually depressed. Like, I think I'm going through depression right now. And it looks, you know, self-diagnosed, but it took a lot of strength and openness within myself, you know, to just even acknowledge that this could be something that I was going through. You know, so like, this is something that happens to other people. It doesn't happen to me, you know. And once I did kind of make that sort of self-diagnosis, that was when I started talking to other friends about it, you know, and kind of really started engaging in a dialogue and being, look, how are you guys doing? Like, what's the reality of the situation? And then it was, you know, finding out, okay, people are going through similar things, it's anxiety, depression, and they're dealing with it in different ways. But all of the guys that I spoke to had something going on. And some of them completely, like, you know, they've lost their businesses. It looks like, you know, 2020, it's gone. They may be able to recover in 21. Others are kind of piecing together something. And I think too, you know, the bigger thing with that is when you know, there's one thing to be a parent and a father, and you have a responsibility there. But when you create a business, the business kind of becomes your own child in a way, you know, and it's, you know, you
Oh, I seem to have lost Sion. David, are you still there? Matt, are you still there?
Yeah, we're still here, buddy.
Okay, well, I will pass over to you, David, while Sion's connection fixes itself, hopefully. But I think what's interesting is that when listening to Sion, there's certainly a feeling of a downward spiral that I certainly witnessed, and I'd love to know your version of that. I must just preface by saying, in the last 3 or 4 months, it's the only time in my life that I felt the actual downward spiral drag. I actually know it, feeling that I've never been aware. I've always heard about depression or deep anxiety from a conceptual point of view with my psychotherapist, but I've always been on a kind of an upward trajectory, possibly fooling myself that everything's fine. But in the last few months, I'd never actually felt, I'd never known the draw, and it's extremely difficult to explain. But it felt to me like something dragging all things downward, and a spiral rabbit hole, where every single thing seems to justify a negative outcome. And I got really scared by that. Actually, I've never felt that thought path. It's like opening a new pattern of thought that I didn't realize. What's been your experience recently, Dave?
Yeah, through COVID, I mean, I definitely resonate with what you're saying there, Jonathan. It's just a slight tweak in your thought process that you start then just thinking negatively about things as opposed to positively, and that voice in your head will do that unconsciously. Then, almost like a machine just turning over, and before you know it, every part of your thought process has changed, and everything in your life is not as good as you perceived it to be a short time ago. For me as well, being a business owner as well, my business is dormant. It just completely, it's events sector. It was the first one to be hit, and it just completely just shook me like everybody else. What do you do? Where do you go? How are we going to get through this? Am I going to get through this? And I resonate with what Sion was saying about it is your baby. It's 12 years now I've been running it, and it almost becomes part of your identity. And that's the real important part, I think, is you identify yourself with that business. And then it's like having some of your identity taken away. And that can be like something just ripped apart, ripped from you, out of your control. And that's obviously going to send everybody into that spiraling mode that you was talking about there, Jonathan. But I am quite fortunate to live with a pretty amazing partner who Jonathan knows, Petra, and she's very, very supportive. And one thing that resonated with me that she used to keep saying is most of us will concentrate 80% of our attention and our time on stuff we can't control. And we only really spend about 20% on the stuff we can control. And that kind of hit me a little bit, and I thought, well, look, let's try and balance that off. I can't control my business. I can't control the direction it's going in. There's too much uncertainty with COVID. Nobody really knows. So what can I control? So I went and got a part-time job delivering parcels as a courier, because I thought if I can't earn 100% of what I need to earn, at least I can earn 80%. So that deficit is not going to be, hitting so bad. I hate the job, I'll be honest with you. It's pretty soul-destroying out there, and it's a hell of a shake-up compared to what I've used to be doing. But it gave me a sense that I was taking back some control. I was, had a sort of growth mindset around, I can't control this, so let's try and work on what I can control, awesome. which really helped.
That's awesome, Matt. When you're when you've I'm certainly not going to share anyone's individual stories with out in public. But if you've been in a certain situation as well in recent times that is interesting. How have you handled your situation, and how much of that could you kind of illustrate in general terms?
Yeah, I mean, for me, even listening to, I can't, it's been a long time since I've been running a business, but I can relate to, these conversations about that also being, like a child to you, or, and when that goes, I can relate to that, because I've had this feeling for a while that there seems to be a series of, that grief, because my situation has been, I've been experiencing basically cancer in my life for the last 10 years, and dealing with that on top of, with family members. Initially, when it all happened, I was on the other side of the world. I was trying to redefine myself at that point, which is why I can relate to this kind of business thing. I'd already experienced, looking back on it, I'd already experienced a massive loss in my life, which was a sense of who I was. I'd gone back, I'd left for Australia because I've been, like you, John, for years, pushing the music thing. I'd actively rejected going and doing a degree. I just left after some pretty substandard A levels, just couldn't wait anymore. It's just like, I'm going to be a rock star. That's what I want to do. And had a lot of fun doing it. But then got to a point in my life where things were breaking down, relationships were breaking down. the small town mentality had started to overwhelm. And I just thought, you know, did that classic thing of, oh, everything will be fine if I'm on the other side of the world, right? Like, sure, I'll leave all my problems behind. But there was an element of excitement, but it was still, it all coincided also with the, you know, the band at the time that was probably the closest to getting record deals and stuff had split up because of personal situations with band members there, which was sad but utterly amazing as well, where they just decided they wanted to be a very present dad rather than the prospect of going on tour and, you know, not even getting to know their own children. So there was beautiful reasons for the band to split up, but that became, well, who am I then? Because it all coincided at a time where I was very close to 30. I thought I've got literally maybe a couple of years more chance to try and do this again, to try and rebuild again with another band on the other side of the world, which the odds were always against me, especially as a lead singer, you know, where age is that little bit more of an issue. And so when I was about to lose my mum and I was on the other side of the world and I was trying to rediscover myself at the same time and reinvent myself and retrain, when I came back to the UK and lost my mum, there was suddenly this double loss. It was, you know, having her support, having her not around in the family, looking at the dramatic effect that was going to have on the rest of my family, but also trying to work out in amongst all of this, I felt less equipped because of my loss, as I was no longer a lead singer of a band. I no longer had, you know, I never had that band of brothers anymore to be pushing for something which was very close to my identity and my feelings of self-worth and self-direction. So and that's just kind of been a running theme, you know. So yeah, you know, lost my mum a couple of years later. My sister was diagnosed, we lost her, and it always tended to also coincide with me, you know, the retraining I'd done hadn't quite worked out, picked up an injury. So I've had this kind of running theme for the last sort of 10 years of trying to find space to get back to who I am and what my drivers are and what's going to make me feel worthwhile, at the same time as also trying to deal with the trauma of either losing family or, you know, I've got an ill partner at the moment, throwing up new, you know, sort of fresh feelings of uncertainty, but it always seems to be at a time where everything else has gone to shit as well.
Yeah.
So and the way I've tended to cope with it, and I think this has been partly just from listening to other people, partly from when the COVID thing first broke, that also coincided with me getting more into meditation and breath work. And for a while that was amazing. It was the most amazing thing that had happened, that there's suddenly this silence and I was allowed to be still and not be around other people. And I think that's really the space I'm in at the minute as a way of trying to make sense of this. And thankfully, so far anyway, that's when most of my answers come through. When I stop trying to look for solutions, when I stop actually, conversely from what was just being said, rather than trying to concentrate on the 20% that I do have control of, to try and maybe work with that, I'm tending to find that the more I just relax and with the out breaths go, none of it's in my control, really. None of it. I do not have the answers. I don't even know what I don't know, which is one of your little phrases, John, that you use a lot, which I always latch onto and go, that's so true. But yeah, almost a case of just succumbing and going, look, this is shit. And I don't have the answers. And I am scared, or I am lonely, or I am angry, and allowing those emotions just to sort of travel in and out with no expectation of a solution from me, almost just throwing it out into the universe and going, things are fucked and I'd really like it if they weren't so fucked, please. And normally when I've done that with honesty, normally that's then, you know, within the next day or so, things will unfold, something will break.
Yes.
You know, so there won't be quite so many of these problems all happening at once, and the feelings of overwhelm will have subsided, because there's a few little chinks of light, just a few things have dropped, so it doesn't feel like, oh fuck, I'm dealing with all of this all at the same time, and I am days away from finding myself in a padded cell, you know.
I like that. I like that. There is some kind of very strange balancing, water finding its own level. I've found that the volume of shit builds to such an extent that as soon as you actually hand it over and just go, yeah, all right, this is all gone to shit, and you stop forcing, it tends to be within the next 24 hours that some kind of clarity happens. And I don't know why that's so exact there. There's something deep inside that.
Absolutely. Same. I feel the same thing. I don't know what it is. It's also that thing that, you know, whether it's either, I guess, because if you are more in touch with your emotions, maybe that is one of your, that's one of your signposts, is you feel this welling up to a point of like, okay, this is critical. This is now when I have to just, as you said, just put your hands up to the universe and go, no, I'm fucked.
I got nothing.
Yeah, exactly. Nada. But for other people is that I do think there is this link as well, that there's sometimes when if you get hit by some kind of mother of all flus or something, or, you know, even like a physical injury, that if you haven't picked up on the emotional signposts, because maybe that's something that you need to practice more, eventually I believe that your body starts to get involved on a biological level to shut you down. You'll be like, all right, if you don't recognize it yet, I'm going to have to make it so that you need to sit in quiet. You need to not move around. You need to not eat shit food. You just got to eat some, you know, just got to put some fruit and drink some water. And maybe, just maybe then, when you have been forced to settle, that's when some of the answers will start coming through.
Totally.
As well.
Totally. Well said. Well said.
Can I just jump in there? Sorry, I just wanted to say that I love what you're saying there, Matt. And it's, in a way, it's like acceptance, isn't it? When things are that bad, you try not to accept it, and that's when everything's just clouded and muddled and messy, and you're muddying the waters all the time. But it sounds like you've accepted it, and then you're learning to let it go. And I practice meditation daily, and isn't it crazy that when you do that, like he was just saying, a few days down the line, something will happen, or something will shift, or something will change. And a lot of books and things that I read, and a lot of people that I listen to say, oh, it's the universe, you know, it's the universe listening to what you need, etc., etc. I rather go down the more sort of scientific route, is you're just not muddying up the waters anymore. So after 2 or 3 days of having that clear space, even if it's just like 30 minutes a day, you then, like Jonathan rightly said, you get more clarity, and then you're able to see an advantage where before there was a disadvantage. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely love that.
Quite right. Sion, over to you. I've realised that we've been nattering away, and you've been sitting and looking very philosophically pensive and nodding occasionally. Which part of what we've said resonates with your journey, and what insights have you gained from this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I really resonate with a lot of it. You know, I can relate to, you know, that depth of your identity and a part of your identity, and that, you know, being in that situation where it's all too much. And I mean, it's like internally you're just like, fuck, like, you know, like not sure where to turn, and you know, like what Matt was saying, is like just accepting that. And that was, like I was saying, the big point for me was when I actually accepted, like, for myself, like, okay, this could be depression. You know, this could be what's going on. And then as soon as I did that and I was able to talk to people, it's like, okay, well, what's my way out of that? And you guys spoke about meditation, and I do use meditation techniques sometimes. But generally my meditation in life has been, throughout my whole life, it's been adventure sports. And I said, right, I'm going to do something every day. You know, I'm going to do something for myself every day, whether it's to go for a trail run, whether I go for a mountain bike, whether I go for a paddle, you know, just an hour every day. And I'm lucky enough to be in a situation where our lockdown hasn't forced me to stay in a home. But doing something that is moving the body physically has definitely helped me. That's my way. Um, and then what I found is, as I started to accept that, and as I started to, accept what was going on, and then do more and more sports and do more and more of my way of clearing my head, naturally things just started to open up, and opportunities and ways of seeing things just started to form naturally. And I guess whether or not you call that the universe, providing opportunities with you, or maybe opening yourself up more to the flow, or perhaps maybe just not having this single-minded focus on where you have a narrow bandwidth, but being able to clear the lens a bit and being able to see a bigger picture. And that's kind of enabled me now to get into a point where I'm back on the up, and new ways of being a husband, of being a parent, of being a business owner, identifying new opportunities are starting to come in.
Do you have you got any Sion, have you got any feeling of concern over your potential inner tendency to depression that's now been recognized? And I'll say this from my perspective. Why I'm asking is that I never realized that there was this rabbit hole of the downward spiral until the last 12 weeks. I'd never felt it before, to be honest with you. And even through any form of trauma, and we've all gone through various different types of it. Even in that deepest trauma, I've always felt that there's this kind of springboard ability to just find what I've called being powered by change. It's only in the last 12 weeks that I felt that there's the springboard that kind of stopped anything being that negative. Kind of like there seems to be this hollow void underneath it where I could go down a spiral, and I could quite easily end up in a situation where I was unable to operate. And I'd never seen that in myself. I'd read stories of Stephen Fry, walking out of a West End theatre production through depression and then locking himself in his house for 6 months. And I've always thought to myself, surely you go home, you have a good sleep, have a little cry, and then wake up and go, I can still, another day is another day. I never realized that actually, I can totally see that you get into that spiral and you can't see your way out. I'd never realized that as a concept was valid. Have you, Sion, do you have any concern over that spiral ability that you have now recognized?
Yeah, definitely. And I can relate exactly what you said. It's a spiral on the way down, and unfortunately, and I think this is the case for a lot of people, is you can't see a way out. Like you can't, and it's almost as if you have, in some ways, an inability to actually get yourself out without some form of external assistance. I mean, people do it; they do get themselves out again, and usually that's through radical acceptance and radical change. Like maybe they just reach a point where, enough is enough, and they implement strategies. And then other people, I think, are like, they need somebody to have a conversation with. They need somebody to help shift that mindset a little bit, because it's just a pattern within the mind. And I think I relate it to somebody like when they're homeless, for example, and they've got nothing. It takes a huge amount of energy when you're in that situation just to survive, and there's no energy left to actually go out maybe and find a job and to slowly elevate. It's just all of your energy and all of your life is just consumed in just survival. And we kind of get stuck in the same pattern. It's sorry, go.
No, I didn't know that until the last month. That feeling. That's totally and utterly accurate. I've been using Maslow's hierarchy of needs flippantly for decades. I've been talking about these type of concepts, but until you actually are in that situation where I'm of no fixed abode now, relying on the charity of others and bits and pieces. My career is not operating. Everything I'd ever built as a legacy for my children has been torn away from me in the legal cases that I've been through. And so my income stream now, bizarrely, is primarily on webinar calls with people, coaching them as how to get through COVID. And so my career, is bizarre, is now as a very affordable, jonathanmcdonald.com, yeah, get in touch, very affordable life coach.
It was only a matter of time before the advert came.
It's my call. I don't know. Okay.
I just want to add on to that. And I greatly admire what you've done in the past, and you as a human being, the books that you've written, Jonathan, and the way you've been in your previous career with being on the forefront. I really, really admire that. But I also too, I think that now it's a lot easier to coach somebody through something if you've been through it yourself.
Yes.
So now, I mean, what you're going through right now, what you're experiencing right now, as uncomfortable as it is, it does give you especially a huge platform to really be able to help people and empathize with people and connect with people. And there's huge room for impact there. So, I would say that, on the silver lining side of it, there's something really, really good there that comes from relatability. And
yeah, it seems I've never had more impact, immediate impact. So the calls that I'm having with people are immediately having that. There's a tremendous meaningful thing, but also, the truth of the matter is that I'm a bit of a control freak, and a financially status-driven control freak at that. So the best thing to happen to a financially status-driven control freak is to wipe them out totally and take all control and all financial support away. And it's an existential crisis to some extent. And then the only way of earning money that I found is by helping other people get through their trauma. So there's a kind of the poetic, it's something very poetic, and there's a lot of people around me are going, there's a book in that, and I genuinely don't have any ambition to make a song and dance or a book or a career out of any of that. Right now, I'm trying to survive, and I know where I'm going to be staying for the next 11 days in my life. And I have no idea after that at all. And I have two potential new client inquiries, and I'm charging a 50th of what I was usually charging in my past career. And I'm just kind of, it's not even rebuild. I guess it's not even, I don't feel as if it's rebuilding my life. It's kind of, there's nothing left. I have absolutely no asset at all. And I have the thing that I have to leverage, the two things I have to leverage is, one is that I feel massively grateful for things in my life now. And I used to say that a year ago, but I never actually lived that. And the ability to be in a room, like this room is warm where I'm in. This is a warm room. And I've got a unlimited amount of water. And so that 3 months ago would have been, I would have heard someone say that on a video call and thought, yeah, all right, mate. You get outside and sit in your Aston Martin and complain about, this, that, whatever. But when you have nothing else, it's like warmth, water. And the second thing is, along with gratitude, is that it's really, really easy to help other people. I found massively easy to help other people, and to listen to people on a video call and then give you like 50 quid or something for it is just is quite it's an easy career. Actually, I much prefer it to driving a delivery, doing a delivery round like you, Dave. Mate, honestly, I don't know how you do that.
It's not rewarding. It's not rewarding like what you do. But I just want to say, Jonathan, that like the amount of growth that you're actually going through now, which probably doesn't, help, but it is astonishing. Because I like your analogy about the springboard. So all your great success that you've had, and all the life that you've built for yourself has all happened above that springboard, isn't it? You've never had or looked at what you can achieve or what you can learn beneath that springboard.
Yeah, that's right.
And now you're there, and then once you learn all that, and then align it with the other stuff, I honestly think you're going to come out of this like 100 times the man that you was before you went into it.
Thanks, mate. Thanks, mate. I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
Can I just ask a question, John, sort of following on from that? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested from you, depending on how much you're willing to share and all the rest of it, but because very rarely, you know, you're the facilitator in these things a lot of the time, you know, and you work some great stuff out of everyone else. But it's nice to hear from you. Do you know what I mean? And what's going on with you. And when you talk about this springboard scenario and finding yourself in this fresh situation where now you can see below it, and that springboard doesn't just direct you, you know, back upwards to deal with, in amongst the kind of panic and the downside of this, a couple of questions really. Do you think that there is a lesson, or do you think the springboard, when you kind of recalibrate it, do you think it's going to the trajectory of that springboard is going to take you somewhere different? Were you recognizing that you are a control freak and it has been monetarily the goal? Do you think the springboard, when it's oiled up and ready to go again, is going to fire you into a different stratosphere? Are your aims going to be different? Is it time now to say, okay, maybe was that serving me?
Yeah.
But also, how much in amongst the kind of panic and the sheer shitness of it, do you feel any sense of freedom?
That one's the second part is the easiest part. Yes, the freedom and liberation is absolute. Like there's no greater liberation than actually having absolutely nothing. I have literally nothing left to lose other than, and by the way, the relationship with my children has got stronger in the meantime, which is another bizarre thing. So it's kind of like, anyway, so there's something there. But the first part of your question is more profound, and I only have one glimmer of the answer yet. Here's a new concept, me not actually knowing what the answer is, that's a new part of my career on itself. But I have a kind of glimmer of what that could be. I suspect that the next version is only doing things that matter. And the reason why I suspect that's the case is that I have now got I have seemed to have lost my, and I don't want to find it, I have lost my care about things that don't matter. So when I declared bankruptcy, the book deal that I was in for my next book, I then contacted my publisher and said, listen, I have to, according to your terms and conditions, I have to tell you that I'm going bankrupt. And so can we delay the book deal until after my bankruptcy is served? And they said, no, you're out, we're canceling your contract and you need to return your advance. So bear in mind, I've got nothing, right? So like, yeah, A, we're going to cancel your book deal. B, you owe us this amount of money. And so for about 2 hours, I was fucking furious. At the last fucking, it's a slap in the face. It's like, you know, and then after that, I was like, actually, I don't give a fuck about business books. I don't want to write any business books. I've made so many people really, really rich, like financially rich. And I couldn't give less of a fuck anymore. And so that was a thing.
I'm so with you on this.
So yeah, there's something in that. There's something in that. David, what do you can you see that angle?
Yeah, I absolutely love that, Jonathan. What a quote. Yeah, and I like the way you said financially rich, because I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'd much rather be the other kind of rich. You know, I've had a taste of both. And God, it's hard when you know, I've never had to, you know, a couple of years ago, I want to go on holiday, if I want to eat out, if I want a, you know, nice car, if I want this, I didn't have to even think about it. It was just there. And now it's not there anymore, but it made an impact for a short time. and now I've got so much more space for have growth in other areas, and yeah, I'd much rather be emotionally rich, have a rich connection with other people, you know, practice vulnerability, self-development, and growth all out of the financial sector and personal, in a personal way. Because, as everyone says, the famous quote, "Money doesn't make you happy," right? And the key to life, in my opinion, is happiness. So, you know, let's seek that out as opposed to trying to buy it, because you can't buy it. You have to learn it. And you experience, and the kind of experiences that we're all going through right now.
Totally. I mean, I'm pretty certain that what I do in the future will, from now moving forward, actually not even the future, because there is no such thing. So from here, my view is that things need to matter, and they need to matter like on an actual meaningful level, rather, you know, business growth matters, but that doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is things like the fact that we tend to plan so much in our life, but we don't plan so much for our death, what's going to happen when we die. And so I'm interested in concepts that enable us to think differently about death. I'm interested in concepts about shelter. So the last thing I did when we exited the flat was to find the places of giving away all the food that was remaining, which about 2 days later, it's like, actually, we actually really need that food. But it's kind of like, there's that. And so I'm interested in shelter and food, and I'm interested in death, and I'm interested in coping, how people cope with things, and mindset reconfiguration. What I'm not interested in is whether or not you should have this product built in green or blue or red and a box or a square, or whether it should have a social media marketing team attached to it, or whether or not, you know, you should scale overseas to America. Even saying all of those words to me is just massively foreign, because now I have to insert the question why at the end of it. So it's like, okay, should this business scale to America? Why? Well, because they're going to make more money. Why? Well, because they need to return the shareholders more value. Why? Well, because the shareholders want to have some growth on their return investment. Why? So they can get more financially rich. Why? And I can't answer the fucking question. I can't answer the end of the question. And so I've exhausted that rabbit hole. And so, yeah, I don't know where to go from there, but it's not down that rabbit hole, mate. Sion, over to you. Do you feel that there's something that's going to fundamentally change in your outlook on life from this? Or are you actually just revisioning how you've always done what you've always done in terms of the outdoor adventures?
I just want to, I'll definitely come to that. Well, actually, I just want to share a story with you guys, which might actually answer that in itself. So I'm 41 now. When I was 19, I went bankrupt, trying to be a millionaire by the time I was 20. And, you know, at that point in time, 19-year-old working 70, 80 hours a week, you know, we're all used to that. You know, at some point in their lives, we've done that. But I made the realization at this point, you know, I thought I followed myself down that rabbit hole when I was sitting there with my bankruptcy and kind of losing everything, and, you know, nothing left except the clothes on my body and a backpack, you know. And I was like, you know, do I want to be a successful financial person, you know, houses in many countries, the plane, the cars, all that sort of stuff? Or do I want to say, you know what, I followed my heart. I have no regrets in my life. You know, when I'm on my deathbed and looking back on my life, and I said, you know what, I followed my heart. That's going to provide me with the most rewarding life. And, you know, I think it was within a week after making that decision, realizing that, I packed all my stuff in a backpack, walked out to the highway in Australia, stuck out my thumb, and I started hitchhiking. Started around Australia, and then I started moving around the world. And I traveled like this for about 5 years. And one of these periods, I was in the States, and I wanted to just really test, I guess, to find the limit of where something in life, whether you call it God or you call it the universe, how far I could push it before that would stop supporting me. So at one point I was in America and I hitchhiked across America and I gave away all my money in this trip. And I said, I'm just going to go out on faith. And magic started to happen during this period, and I can only describe it as magic. I would think to myself, like, I wouldn't even finish the thought in my head. I'm feeling a little bit hungry. And I'd be like, I'm feeling a little bit, and someone would be like, hey, I made this great lunch at work. I didn't get a chance to eat it. Would you like some? Or, man, I could really do with a hot shower and a place to stay. And, someone would be like, oh, you're such an inspiration. We love your story. Come stay at our place. Long story short, through these travels, I did have some harder times. I remember arriving in the south of France, completely homeless, no money, and literally having to beg for food and sleeping on the beach. And I've also, throughout my life, met some amazing people. I've flown in private jets. I've stayed in 5-star hotels. Hung with rich and famous, and I've managed to live both of these experiences. I guess you could say these two extremes of homeless and poverty with nothing, and also the other one. And it's made me realize that, if I could trade any of those experiences, the rich experiences, and those, or the homeless experiences, I would not change the homeless experiences, because being reduced to nothing, or losing everything that we thought we had, all those things that society tells us that we have to grasp for, that we have to climb for, that these definitions of success that we get given, you strip all of that away and you're left with a fundamental question: is who am I as a human being? And you're more able to, as Jonathan was saying, why? What is the reason for my existence? Why am I actually here? And I found when you're in that situation, you're able to connect with people on a deeper level. And also you're able to see opportunities where opportunities didn't exist before. And that's with, connecting with other people, but also during that connection, you start to see the way that other people think, the way that they're working, maybe ways that you can see of synchronicities and things that would work together. So in answer to the question where we're going from here is, I've actually changed our perspective. I'm primarily an online shop, and that's what our business has been. But supply chains in that are very, very fragile. And there's another part of my business which I've thought about in the past, but I've never really gone down, which is now really, really starting to take off. And that's custom trips and expeditions for people. And the way that that's happening is, people now are struggling in their own terms, in their own ways with the COVID situation, yet they're finding this desire and this need to reconnect. And I, especially with natural spaces, with the things that make them feel alive, so these sports, but also with people that are able to relate to their story. And I'm finding more and more that this area of our business is we're getting more and more interest for it. And I'm also finding, more importantly, that this is much more inspiring, rewarding, energizing for me. So instead of having this sense of apathy and this lack of energy and not really finding any meaning in my life, I'm finding more and more and more that's bringing people to these places and connecting with them more, and facilitating that deeper connection to nature is energizing me at the same time.
Awesome.
And I know that these experiences are making a difference in people's lives.
Good. That's really good. Thanks, Leon. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing, mate. David, in closing, is there any, what are you going to change and do differently moving forward, if anything, from this insight? And what's your kind of outlook for the next steps for David Taylor 2.0?
David Taylor 2.0.
Scary thought.
I'd already started on a path of. So I'm doing a counselling degree at the moment, Jonathan, and I've just been accepted as of yesterday for my third year. So super psyched about that. Awesome. And that's the trajectory that I'm on. I really want to, after experiencing my own sort of rock bottom and dealing with depression and all the other kind of stuff that I've been through, having my own counselling and seeing what an amazing impact it had on me, and literally life-changing, that I want to spread that around the world, basically. So yeah, I'm just that's that's my little golden egg at the end of a journey. So I'll continue to deliver 200 parcels a day in the pissing down the rain or the sweaty heat, or, you know, work in the dark and do whatever I need to do, because that I need that to get to there. And I know this difficult time like we're all in at the moment is where I'm going to get a lot of growth from as well. So it's, you know, it's about looking for it, being aware of it, and then using it down the line when I get qualified. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Matt, over to you. In closing, what would you say is your view of what you're going to do moving forward?
Yeah, well, firstly, David, I think you're going to smash it, mate. That's great. That's great. Go for it. I would love to have a counsellor like you. You know. So yeah, I look forward to watching that success. Matt 2.0. I think I'm about 7.1 and still going, no, that was shit. Let's try 7.2. But I think definitely where I'm going is also down the healing route. Moving away from sales, which I was never meant to be in the first place, but somehow it just ended up being good at it, partly from the whole band experience and being used to being told no a lot, and then getting back up and going, how about this, how about that, wangling gigs. Do you know what I mean? It was sort of inbuilt in me that you know, being in a band, as you know, John, you get so many people basically go, yeah, all right, what are you going to do for a real job? You know, yeah, but when you're back off your little cloud and you're back in reality, what are you really going to do? So you're very used to people just not wanting to see your vision. So yeah, I did all right with it, but all the way through, there's been, I remember going and having first sort of counselling way back in my late teens, early 20s, and you know, traditional sort of talking counselling, not really doing it for me. It served a purpose for a while, just to maybe affirm maybe some of my suspicions about what had caused it. But when you got to the area of and what now, that traditional counselling, that's where it was for me, and it was lacking. I was more interested about, what do I do? How do I change? What practices can I put in place? So when I got into more of the martial arts and the energy type healing and Reiki, I remember the first thing that a Reiki healer had said to me after a session was just, you know, you've got the potential to be a healer. There's definite stuff coming out of you. What do you do? And I went, well, you know, I'm in a band. I'm a musician. And she went, well, so you're a healer then. You know, you're already on that trail, and that kind of resonated with me for quite a while. And then I sort of forgot it with all of the kind of losses that had gone on, not the loss of myself and the loss of family members and loved ones. It's understandable that sometimes you just say, oh, fuck this. You know, I've got, it's all got to be proof now. All of this fluffy stuff, all about this, you know, connecting with yourself, your higher self, the universe, however you want to frame it, it's essentially the same thing. And I went through a phase of just shutting that down and going, well, that bloody worked, didn't it? I keep losing people that I love. This is shit. But gradually that message has come back, you know, and every time I tried to move away from the selling, it was, you know, I'm going to be a personal trainer. I'm going to be a massage therapist. I'm going to dabble in shiatsu. I went and did a bit of stand-up comedy for all of about 6 weeks before it terrified the hell out of me. But all of it pointed back towards ultimately healing in some shape or form, trying to give of yourself for the betterment of other people and getting massive rewards for that. So I'm back on that trail now, re-remembering it with this massive sort of burnout and meltdown last week, which led to the sitting in the silence and saying, okay, I got nothing again. What can I do? Please help me shift things. And within a day, you know, as from next week, my sales job is being redefined, and I'm going to help with the kind of implementation of their CRM system, which is not being done well. So I'm out of sales as from next week. And I think the other thing that kind of led to it was during this time when there was all the silence, something came through, which was like, I am missing out on opportunities to learn every second of the day because I'm so fixated on, I need to get out of this and then go and learn hypnotherapy, learn more about Reiki, learn breathwork. And until I've got these things, my life is on hold. And I was missing out on the opportunities to learn about nutrition every single day for the benefit of myself and for my partner. I was missing out on learnings that were maybe there right in front of me in the job that I was getting more and more frustrated with. And now suddenly what I was getting frustrated with is going to be learning as from next week. It probably was always there, but it's that's going to be one of the things that I carry forward, along with getting back on the healing path, but also remembering that stop waiting for an official course, or stop waiting for this thing that you've defined too highly in your head, or too particularly in your head, and to just put it out there in a more general, loose terms. And if some of it is about there's still a lot to learn, then, but not defining it, maybe you open yourself up and you find opportunity where it's always been, but you just hadn't seen it.
Awesome. Well said. I also think, Matt, by the way, oh, sorry, Dave. Yeah, I'm just going to hold this up. I'm just going to just bookend that, and I'll pass it over to you, Dave. Matt, by the way, I genuinely think that one day you're going to find a tribe of activists and you're going to be an activist in a movement, by the way, just saying. Thought that for 35 years. David, over to you.
Sorry, I just wanted to jump in there and say that I am a Reiki healer, Matt. So we should definitely stay in touch, and I will send you some stuff, and we can definitely chat about that. That's all I wanted to just.
Awesome.
Nice cool. One. Cheers, man.
I love doing Reiki 1 and 2 as well. It's changed a lot of things in my life, and it's a brilliant channel. I'm so pleased that you've all three connected as well, and it's been an honor to know you all. And perhaps what we can do in 2 or 3 months' time is redo this call again and just check in with each other and see. You know, we've got our own WhatsApp group, guys chat, and so let's keep in touch about that, but also check in again. And if anyone's watching this that wants to connect with any of us, then you can use the Think Up group to DM me in the Think Up group, and then I can connect you with any of these fine young men on the call. And yeah, I just want to thank you again for being part of this. And it's been, I felt kind of a bit emotional through the call, actually, to be honest. It's very, almost as if this is handling a precious object. The conversation is kind of this, I'm trying to give it enough room and space to breathe and stuff, and it matters. And I like the feeling that of this mattering and the meaning, because it's not trivial, and that's what really, really works. And Sion, were you just about to say something in closing? My spider sense is a feeling as if you need to say something, and I'm giving you the space to do so.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add on to that, and this is something that I've learned from you, Jonathan, as well as other people. And that's, you know, what I found was extremely important is probably when I realized that I needed to get myself out and start digging myself out. I gave a serious reflection on what are my core values and what is my why, like what is my reason for being. And I wrote them down, and I can't emphasize enough, like, it's one thing to sit down and think about it, but writing them down, even if you don't look at that piece of paper again, it's such a powerful process. And I would like to put that to anybody that does listen to this. You know, take the time, sit down, reflect on what your values are, your reason for being, you know, what your why is, and write it down. And that process is in itself is going to open up doors and opportunities you never thought were there.
Well said, well said. And I use the term values grid, and Sion, I think I went through that with you as well. And so, yeah, so for anyone listening, if you have a grid of 9 boxes, thinking about what your middle one is and then working out around it. David, you may have seen Petra's version of this that I went through with her. There is almost nothing more important than to know what you stand for, otherwise you fall for anything, right? Actually ensuring that you have a real clarity as to what those things are and how they interact is massive in this journey that we're on. And thank goodness for the situation that we're in. You know, as soon as one person dies through COVID, then it's already tragic, and it's one too many people. But that aside, and my daughter has been a frontline worker throughout this C-19 situation for the entire 3.5 months. She's nursed and seen all different versions of this this happen, and despite that, I'm truly grateful that this chaos has resulted in a tremendous opportunity to gain clarity. And I'm also grateful for the ability to have felt the downward spiral. I've never given enough respect to depression. And I never realized that there's that other, I didn't realize there was anything underneath the springboard. I just thought it was a fucking springboard. Anyway, so thanks everyone for joining, and I shall send you the video first, and if you approve it all, then this will then be sent out. And for those who are watching, if this has been sent out, then you're lucky, everyone approved. And I just, yeah, I'm just extremely grateful to having you in my life, and thanks for sharing, everyone. And I shall speak to you all in our lovely WhatsApp group.
Thanks a lot, man. Love you.
Nice one, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jonathan, for organising.
Cheers, everyone. You're welcome. Cheers, guys.